Imagine a city at dusk, windows glowing like patient fireflies, traffic rolling in slow rivers, and an apartment block where the stairwell light flickers every few seconds. In that half light, you can hear everything: the rise and fall of footsteps, the distant call of a radio, the hush of someone holding their breath behind a door. Crime does not always announce itself with sirens. Sometimes it whispers in the places we pass every day. This is the story of a stairwell case. It's also a guided tour of the mind, how ordinary people make extraordinary choices, how patterns form, and why understanding those patterns matters. We'll walk through a true-to-life composite scenario based on real principles of criminal psychology. Along the way, we'll unpack terms you've heard: impulse, motive, MO, risk factor, and we'll see how they connect to something much more human: need, fear, shame, and hope. Let's begin where every crime really starts, not with the act itself, but with the opportunity. It began with reports of break-ins that left behind very little. No smashed windows, no loud entries, mostly stairwell doors quietly propped, and apartment locks that looked, at first glance, untouched. The victims noticed small things missing: a phone that had been charging by the kitchen sink, an envelope with rent money that used to sit beneath a ceramic bowl, a photo frame placed back slightly crooked. Small losses that pile up into a big feeling: violation. Detectives gave the case a working name: Stairwell. It sounded simple, but the pattern was strange. The building had a security guard who did rounds. The cameras in the lobby worked. The burglar never took anything heavy, never trashed a room, and never lingered long enough to get caught on more than a blur. To understand the pattern, a forensic psychologist, let's call her Dr. Lin, joined the team. Not all cases get a psychologist, but this one had a rhythm that felt personal. The intrusions were precise, not chaotic. The burglar seemed to know when residents would be away and which doors latched improperly. He had an MO, a modus operandi, a way of doing things that repeated. He also had something that looked like a signature, one detail he didn't need to leave but did: the photo frame slightly tilted. Why? A taunt? A compulsion? A tell? Criminal psychology is not mind reading, it's pattern reading. Dr. Lin started with the basics: time, place, choice. Most break-ins occurred on weekday evenings between 6 and 8 p.m., a narrow window. Most were on floors near stairwell landings: quick in, quick out, no elevator cameras. Most targeted apartments with signs of routine: a delivery schedule, a dog walked at the same hour, a lamp that clicked on exactly at 7 from a timer. That suggests planning, not impulsivity. It suggests someone who studies habit, who values control, and who is confident enough to move in that twilight between attention and inattention, when dinner is cooking and laundry is tumbling and nobody is fully watching the hallway. But why the frames? Dr. Lin offered two possibilities. First, ritual. People sometimes build small rituals to manage anxiety before, during, or after risky acts. A tilted frame could be the burglar's way of saying to himself, "I was here, I'm real, and I got away." Second, message. A tilted frame could be a subtle communication to the residents or to the investigators: "I can come and go." One possibility points to the burglar's inner need, the other to his outer performance. Most behavior is a blend. We tend to picture criminals as different, but as Dr. Lin likes to remind trainees, most criminal choices are made by people who are not so different at all. They are influenced by the same three ingredients that shape ordinary decisions: opportunity, pressure, and rationalization. Opportunity is the open door. Pressure is the need or crisis: money, debt, pride, addiction, the feeling of being cornered. Rationalization is the story you tell yourself to make it okay. They won't miss it. They have insurance. I'm just borrowing time. When those three align, risk-taking rises. When you reduce any one of them, lock the door, relieve the pressure, challenge the rationalization, the likelihood of the crime drops. After the fifth break-in, the building manager posted notices. The guard changed his rounds. The residents watched each other more closely. The next week, no thefts. The week after, another. Same time, same surgical entry. This time, the burglar took nothing but a single spare key and tilted 2 frames. That was new. That was riskier. Dr. Lin mapped the case into 2 domains: external pattern and internal pattern. Externally, the burglar's route was efficient. Internally, the risk tolerance was rising. Why? 2 classic possibilities: success breeding confidence, or stress pushing reckless escalation. Think of risk like a lever. Some people push it gradually, testing boundaries. Others yank it suddenly when their life feels like it's slipping. Escalation often reveals more about the why. Detectives canvassed pawn shops. They interviewed delivery drivers. They checked maintenance logs. One name popped up more than others. A temp worker who had helped repaint stairwells 2 months earlier. Someone who would have learned the building's rhythms, exits, blind corners, which doors didn't close all the way unless you pulled them tight. The worker's name was Devin Hale. Devin was 28, quiet, polite in the notes, no criminal record, a series of short contracts, the kind of life that leaves light footprints, no steady paycheck, no strong references, a trusted pair of hands without a fixed place to put them. The detectives called him in for a conversation. Here's where psychology matters most. The interview room. Good interviewing is not trickery. It's structure and empathy. First comes rapport, respectful small talk that signals you're a person, not a problem. Then comes baseline, observing how someone speaks, moves, and pauses when they talk about neutral topics, so you can compare it to how they act when topics get sensitive. Then comes strategy, open-ended questions first, letting a person tell their story in their own words, followed by gentle probes to resolve contradictions. The goal is not to catch a tell. Humans are complex. The goal is to understand the story someone needs to tell and the parts they can't yet bear to tell. Devin sat straight, hands folded, a little like waiting at a doctor's office. He answered questions about the paint job, deadlines, materials, which days he had been in the building. He remembered the flickering stairwell light without being prompted. He remembered a resident's dog's name. He did not remember details about other buildings he had worked in that same month. Memory does that. It holds on to emotional anchors and lets ordinary details fade. Was that suspicious? Not by itself. When asked where he was on the evenings of the break-ins, Devin hesitated. He said he had side gigs, delivering food, running errands, sometimes tutoring a neighbor's kid in algebra. He couldn't prove those nights. He looked tired, not defiant, not terrified, just worn. Dr. Lin asked if he ever felt like his life was getting narrower, like every month there was a little less room to breathe. Devin smiled without humor. "Sure," he said. "Isn't that just being an adult?" He laughed softly, glanced at the camera, and let the laugh die. When we talk about motive, we often imagine dramatic forces: greed, revenge, obsession. In practice, motive is often painfully ordinary. A stack of unpaid bills, a mistake that snowballed, someone trying to keep a tiny promise to someone else. We can hold people accountable and still see the human math. The way stress narrows attention, the way shame blocks better options, the way fear of being seen as a failure makes risky shortcuts feel strangely logical. The detectives asked permission to search Devin's backpack. He nodded. Inside was a worn notebook, a half-eaten granola bar, and a ring of keys with a few blanks, common for building work. They were not the resident's keys. The blanks could be bought in any hardware store. Still, the detail fit: someone who knew keys, doors, latches, someone who paid attention. Devin did not confess. The interview ended politely. He went home. Investigations are not straight lines. The team logged Devin as a person of interest, not a suspect, not yet. They widened their focus. They talked to a locksmith who lived 2 blocks away from the building. They reviewed footage from a bus stop camera facing the alley. A figure appeared on 2 nights, hoodie up, head down, moving like someone who knew exactly where the shadows were. Not proof, but a piece. Then the case shifted. A resident returned home to find the stairwell door ajar again. This time, nothing missing. But on the floor of the hallway lay a small square of paper with 4 words written on it: "I am not bad." The handwriting was neat, carefully printed, like homework turned in by someone who wants the grade more than the praise. Why would a burglar leave a note like that? In psychology, we talk about cognitive dissonance, the discomfort that arises when our actions clash with our beliefs about who we are. For many offenders, maintaining a good person identity is essential. They reframe the act: "I only take what they don't need. I never hurt anyone. They left the door open. It's not really theft." The note could be dissonance made visible. A person trying to tell a story about themselves that their behavior contradicts. Dissonance can push people in 2 directions, toward rationalizing more strongly or toward stopping. Which way depends on whether they see a path back to dignity. Dr. Lin proposed a community strategy: change the environment to reduce opportunity and change the narrative to reduce rationalization. The building replaced the faulty latch. The manager posted a different kind of notice, not a threat, but a message. If you are struggling, we can connect you with help. If you have information, talk to us without fear. This is a shared place. Some residents felt skeptical. Others nodded. Hope is a strategy, but never the only one. 2 nights later, the figure returned. This time, the guard took an early round and startled him near the landing. The figure ran. In the rush, a cap fell off, and a phone skittered under the radiator. The guard hesitated. Pursue or pick up the phone? He chose the phone. The phone belonged to Devon Hale. The arrest was quiet. No cuffs in the hallway, no shouting. At the station, Devon asked for water. He asked for a moment to breathe. He asked if the residents were safe, if anyone had been hurt. The detective said yes, no one had been hurt. Then they asked again, why? Devon told a story. Not a sensational story. A small one. He'd grown up nearby, in a building where the heat didn't always work in winter. His mother took 2 jobs. His stepfather drank. Devon learned early that quiet was safer than noise. He learned to fix things, door latches, loose hinges, because waiting for the landlord meant waiting forever. Fixing gave him a feeling he loved: control. Later, control got harder to find. Jobs ended, rent rose. A friend asked him to help paint stairwells, and suddenly he had access to a dozen buildings that felt like memories: echoing hallways, the smell of dust and soup, the click of distant televisions. He started exploring after hours, at first to check whether doors were safe, then to test his skill. He told himself he wasn't stealing, just observing. Then he took small things, each time telling himself it was okay, each time promising it was the last. He hated himself afterward. He tilted frames as a way to leave a mark. I can change this, I have some power left. And maybe, he admitted, to make sure people noticed him, even if they didn't know his name. Was Devon a villain? A victim? Neither label fits perfectly. Labels rarely do. He was a person making bad choices under pressure, with rationalizations that cracked when held up to light. He was not violent. He was not proud. He was tired of being invisible. Dr. Lin doesn't decide sentences. That's the court's role. But she does provide risk assessments and recommendations. She looked at the research on what works: structured routines that address the exact behaviors at issue, cognitive behavioral programs that help people examine and rewrite their rationalizations, supervision that includes real-life supports, not just check-ins, opportunities to build legitimate control through skill and contribution. People often ask, do people change? The honest answer is, sometimes. Change is more likely when there's a real plan, when shame is met with accountability and dignity, when the person can replace the old reward with a better one. Devon did not need an excuse. He needed a path. The residents wanted reassurance. Dr. Lin met with them in the lobby, between ferns that had seen better days. She explained what the case had taught them. Opportunistic crime and patterned crime can look similar at a distance. The difference is in preparation and meaning. The Stairwell case had both: preparation in the careful timing and doors tested over days, meaning in the frames and the note. That meaning mattered, not to excuse the acts, but to make sure the solution fit the person. Punishment without understanding can feel like closure, but it doesn't always reduce risk. Understanding helps you lock the right door. We also need to talk about fear. Crime steals more than objects. It steals ease. It makes the hallway feel like a stage, and you the only actor without a script. Dr. Lin gave practical advice that reduces both risk and fear. Vary routines, check latches, get to know neighbors well enough to recognize who belongs, report broken lights immediately, agree on a hallway code. If you prop a door for a reason, leave a visible sign so others know it's intentional, not suspicious. None of this guarantees safety, but layered together, it makes opportunity harder, pressure less urgent, and rationalization weaker. In the weeks after the arrest, something else happened. Residents started talking to one another more. A teacher on the 3rd floor offered to help a teenager on the 2nd with math. A retired locksmith volunteered to host a free Fix Your Latch Day in the lobby. A small notice board appeared with cards for job openings and support groups. Crime shrinks community. Community can shrink crime. What about the note, "I am not bad"? Dr. Lin kept a copy in her case file, not as a souvenir, but as a reminder that identity is a battleground. One of the most powerful predictors of behavior is what people think they are capable of and what they think they deserve. If you see yourself as irredeemably bad, you act accordingly. If you see yourself as good no matter what you do, you avoid responsibility. The productive middle is hard and human. I did harm. I can do better. Here is how. Let's zoom out for a moment, because the Stairwell case is not just one building story. It's a lens on three truths. First, crime is often proximal. It happens where paths cross predictably: stairwells, bus stops, parking garages, the perimeters of trust. If you want to prevent crime, don't just think about criminals. Think about these crossings. Light them, maintain them, make them visible to neighbors. Second, people offend for reasons that are both situational and personal. Situational reasons include opportunity and routine. Personal reasons include skill deficits, beliefs, stress, isolation, addiction, and learned coping. The more precisely you identify the mix, the more precisely you can respond. Third, justice can be both firm and forward-looking. It can say, "This was wrong," and also say, "Here's what will make it less likely to happen again." That combination is not soft. It is strategic. It's the difference between putting a lid on a boiling pot and turning down the heat. When Devon stood in court, his lawyer presented a plan: restitution to those whose property he took, a structured program that combined work with counseling, regular check-ins, and community service with the building maintenance team under supervision to repair the kind of small failures he used to exploit. The judge listened. The victims spoke. Some were still angry. They had a right to be. Some were relieved. They had a right to that too. The sentence balanced both, consequences and a path. Months later, Dr. Lin visited the building. The stairwell light no longer flickered. Someone had painted the walls a brighter white. A new habit had formed. Neighbors who didn't just pass but greeted, learned names, asked after each other's week. The frames in the hallways were straight. One resident told Dr. Lin, "It feels different now, like the building is paying attention." That's what safety often feels like. Attention distributed, not concentrated. Responsibility shared, not outsourced to a single guard or a single camera. Criminal psychology doesn't live only in interview rooms. It lives in the daily decisions of everyone who shares a space. Before we end, let's return to the mind. We like clean narratives, heroes and villains, causes and effects. The mind isn't clean. It's full of feedback loops. A choice changes a context. A context changes the next choice. Shame can either deepen harm or motivate repair. Control can be used to dominate or to build. Attention can be used to exploit a gap or to close it. In practice, prevention is not just locks and laws. It's the slow, sturdy construction of better loops. If you've ever been tempted to do something you knew was wrong and rationalized it, it's small, it's fine, this story is a mirror. If you've ever judged someone else's worst moment as their entire identity, this story is a nudge to widen the frame. And if you manage a building, a classroom, a team, or a family, the lesson is the same. Set up spaces where good choices are easy and bad choices are hard, where dignity and accountability walk together. Devon's note said, "I am not bad." The residents' reply in how they improved their building could be read like this: "We are not helpless." Both messages matter. Identity without action is hollow. Action without identity is brittle. Together, they change patterns. As night settled, the city kept breathing. The elevator hummed. The hallway settled into its clean, unremarkable quiet. That quiet isn't nothing. It's the hard-won sound of people paying attention to one another, of opportunities for harm shrinking, of someone who once tilted frames now straightening them, one by one. The mind of a criminal is not a monster's cave. It is a human room with lights that sometimes flicker. Turn up the light, through design, through dialogue, through fair consequences, and the shadows lose their power. That is the promise of understanding. That is the real work of justice. Thank you for walking the stairwell with me. If you listen carefully on your way down, you'll hear something new. Not the whisper of intrusion, but the quiet click of a latch that's finally secure, and the soft chorus of neighbors saying hello.